Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Clown Planet Daily Wrap Up Thursday evening, The Late Show with Steve and Sessions Fidelia. Coming at you at 9:36 p.m., 2nd September 2025, King St. Stephen Feast Day. Let's get right to it. I know it's late. What happened was I scheduled this out. It said 9:45, whatever it was. I don't even look at what the schedule is. I put this thing together like at 4 o'clock. I just updated a little bit more for what the last 5 hours will happen. And I was expecting to get back. We usually go out as a family, go play pickleball, and it just took forever to get out of the house and play and come back late, everything. So everything was just pushed back. So now it's 9:30. So that's why it's late. I was not expecting to even come close to the scheduled time. I just threw it out there going, there's no way I'm not going to make it before 9:45. And I almost made it to 9:45. So I'm glad I picked that number. All right, so let's get right to it so we can get in and out and on to other things like, relaxing. Meet Jim O'Neill, the longevity enthusiast who is now RFKJ's right-hand man. He's the new CDC director. The newest addition to the Trump's health agency wants to create new cities in the sea, extend human lifespan, and make America healthy again. That's what he looks like. He was nominated to be the second in command of U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Dylan Livingston was excited. As founder and CEO of the lobbying group Alliance for Longevity Initiatives, A4LI, if you're nasty, Livingston is a member of a community that seeks to extend human lifespan. O'Neill is kind of one of us. He told me shortly before O'Neill was sworn in as Deputy Secretary on June 9th. And now he's in a position of great influence. As RFKJ's new right-hand man, O'Neill is expected to wield authority at health agencies that fund biomedical research and oversee the regulation of new drugs. Speaking of which, since I was stumbling over that, everyone that has commented and said has mocked and just said this is kind of stupid what I'm doing. I'm fine with it. Whatever you guys want, whatever the haters want to say, at least you're watching, I guess. The haters are fun. And while O'Neill doesn't subscribe to RFKJ's contentious beliefs and supports existing vaccine schedules, he may still steer the agencies in controversial new directions. Although much less of the public figure than his new boss, O'Neill is quite well known in the increasingly well-funded and tight-knitted longevity community. By the way, just like Peter Thiel, this guy likes drinking blood or something like that. Let's see. I don't know if this brings up the anti-agendas. I don't know if that brings this up, but he's definitely a weirdo. It's quite a powerful position. His senior role O'Neill has held at HSS, though it's not his first, occupied various positions of departments in the early double lots. O'Neill appears to have had a close relationship with Peter Thiel since at least the late 2000s. That should make you feel all good and fuzzy right now, warm and fuzzy. Thiel has heavily invested in longevity research and has said he does not believe that death is inevitable. In 2011, O'Neill referred to Thiel as his friend and patron. A representative for Thiel does not respond to request a comment. O'Neill also served as CEO of the Thiel Foundation between 2009 and 2012 and co-founded the Thiel Fellowship, with offers $200,000 to promising young people if they drop out of college and do other work. Why could somebody approach me that during the beginning of the double odds? I would sign me up. When he spent 7 years as managing director of Mithril Capital Management, a family of long-term venture capital funds founded by Peter Thiel, according to O'Neill's LinkedIn profile. O'Neill spent several years CEO of SRF from 2019-21. Prominent figure in the longevity field, was removed following accusations of sexual harassment. As CEO, O'Neill oversaw the student education program and multiple scientific research projects that focused on various aspects of aging, according to the organization's annual reports. And in 2020 SRF annual report, O'Neill wrote that Eric Hargan, then the Deputy Secretary of HHS, had attended an SRF conference to discuss regulatory reform. 2 women, forget that part. O'Neill confirmed, streams known other 15 years. Calls him a good guy. I think likes drinking blood. It's nice this longevity science FDA. Where's the good stuff at? I know it's in here. Anti-aging, changing the rules. I know it's in it. Just to start off with a bang. I longevity state. Did I skip it? No. If anybody sees blood drinking, just let me know. Then I want to read the whole thing. Will he deliver? I might have skipped past it too, but yeah, just it's all about aging and longevity. Anyway, trust me. Maybe it's in the next link. The guy, Peter Thiel likes doing it too. He likes drinking young blood or something like that. Peter Thiel makes down payment on libertarian ocean colonies. If a small team of Silicon Valley millionaires get their way in a few years, you could have a new option for global citizenship, a permanent quasi-sovereign nation floating on international waters. Kind of like Pretoria, if you remember Family Guy. Nobody longevity good. Sorry, I'm just reading the chats now. Yeah, blood drinker. Yeah, these guys are weirdos. And they're in top positions of the government right now. Let's see, billionaire philanthropists funding anti-aging research. Far-thinking billionaires, blah, 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 blah. The objective is to accelerate scientific advances that will enable humans to enjoy longer and healthier lifespans. 40 years ago, Paul Allen and Bill Gates co-founded Microsoft. Allen donated $100 million to the Allen Institute for Cell Service, which models complex mechanisms of living cells. Only $3 billion needed to find a way to slow aging. According to NIH, allocates mere 3.7%. Out of that 3.7, the NIA spends 71%, just $819 million on research project grants. You wish you had 3%. Give me 1% of whatever they get. I'd be happy. We'd be partying. Most billionaires' charities ignore aging research. Slow aging is important. The disease-specific research. I will find you the few billionaires that get it. PayPal founder Peter Thiel funded several $1 million into longevity research. His donations are targeted toward funding an organization posed to make the very most of it, such as the Dynamic SENS Research Foundation. SENS stands for Strategies for Engineered Negligible SENS. We'll just stay with SENS. The greatest revolution anybody could feel long alive. I will find you the blood drinking. It is somewhere. No, it's there. Replace human body with an completely artificial one. Occasionally, he'll even mention the term immortality. That's Dmitry Etskov. He's a Roman media mogul. And it just goes through all the millionaires and billionaires that are for this. And here it is right here in 2014 speech. O'Neill suggested that drug effectiveness could be established after they hit the market. Quote, I support CDC's recommendations for vaccines. O'Neill told Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy at a confirmation hearing in June. I think that's a central role the CDC has. It's mandated in law. And O'Neill also disclosed the history of working with vaccine makers, including Advantage Therapeutics, which is developing a vaccine to treat Alzheimer's, a rational vaccine, which is developing the shot for herpes. Let's see. Yeah. Anyway, he's your new CDC guy. Canadian hikers get a COVID-style tyranny treatment. If you haven't heard about this, if you go in the woods in anywhere in Canada, you get fined. On August 5th, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston decreed a $25,000 fine for anyone walking in the woods or otherwise violating a new prohibition that covered both government and private lands. Yeah, imagine that happening today. There'd be a lot of people that would do it because you saw how many people did that in 2020. I would not be one of them. I would call my people up. Hey, we're going to live stream in the woods. Economy on the brink of recession by end of the year. Moody's economist reports. Sorry, throw a little, Black Pill Monday on your. What do we call Tuesday? I can't remember what I call Tuesday. It's not Taco Tuesday, but it's Throwback Tuesday. I don't know. I'll let somebody figure that one out. Once and future President King Donald J. Trump has rarely passed up an opportunity to tell Americans that the U.S. economy, with his hand on the wheel, is roaring. His administration has held the GDP growth rates, high levels of foreign investment, and relatively benign inflation readings as evidence that tariffs have been a resounding success, and that it's only skeptical policymakers within the federal government holding back an otherwise unrivaled boom. But the Mark Zandi, chief economist of Moody's, the warning signs or red indicators are showing up in every corner. Ray Charles can see this coming. From housing to unemployment to consumer prices. In an interview with Newsweek, Zandi said that his months-long fears of the major economic downturn may soon come to a head and that the U.S. economy could slip into a recession by the end of 2025. Quote, I don't think the economy is in a recession, at least not at this point, but it feels like it's on the brink. It's on the precipice of a recession. Again, if you want to read any of this stuff, it's underneath in the show notes. Remember they talked about how Labor Day was like the lowest gas in the last 4 or 5 years? Oh, when we drove back from Plan to the Park, the gas was $2.89. It went up 15 to 17 cents in the last 12 hours. Scott Bassett, Scott, the former right hand of Soros and the MAGA version of Pete Buttigieg, Bassett, quote, we may declare a national housing emergency in the fall. All the cheerleaders love this one. Obviously, he has no authority to do this. It was Troubles Tuesday. Hey, it starts with a T. It works. It's got a little ring to it. Shelly, I have not seen any of the earthquakes. Sorry. Anybody else? See, I haven't been on earthquake watch though. All the cheerleaders are loving this, but obviously he has 0.0 authority to do this. But in the government by emergency, which is what we see all the time, we're in emergency, we're in emergency, we're in emergency, we're in emergency. Anytime someone says, you hear that in the church too, we're in emergency, we're always in a crisis. There's literally a book called Crisis in the Church. That's why if you ever saw that series is in the playlist about the councils of the church. We started that because of that book, Crisis in the Church. And we went through and Dr. Allen goes through all the councils, which is it's great because it just doesn't, it's say like one of the videos is an hour and 45 minutes. Hour and 30 minutes of it is leading up to the council, all the problems that was going on. And like the last 15, 20 minutes of our things is actually on the council itself. I mean, you go through like, holy cow, it's just terrible what was going on before every council. So exactly, it's an emergency. We've always been in an emergency. But these guys use this, and politics-wise, they use the emergency as, oh, well, we're in fear. You got to give us a control of everything. Treasury Secretary Scott Soros Buttigieg Bassett told the Washington Examiner on Labor Day that the Trump administration may declare a national housing emergency by the coming months to address the affordability crisis. I've been on the record saying I bet they will give up, they will do student loan forgiveness at some point in time. Bassett's comments come just ahead of an expected interest rate cut cycle, underscoring the administration's urgent effort to address the affordability crisis, which is set to be one of the key topics ahead of the 2026 midterms, because they see it's getting worse, especially in the South. Inventories going skyrocket, and the prices are staying high. Nothing's changing. And if they just move, even if they move the interest rate down, percentage, whatever, the prices are still too high. There was a house, Revenge Rap was in Tennessee, and he went by this one, was it Tennessee? I think it was Tennessee or Florida. And he went by this one home, and it was 8 years ago, it was like $450,000. It is currently at $950,000. Nobody's buying $1 million home. That is not $1 million home. Was then joined the Washington Examiner for breakfast on Labor Day at McLean Family Restaurant on Monday. He told the outlet that once and future King, President DJT, plans to make affordability a critical pillar of America First 2026 midterm election platform. Here's his tweet. On this Labor Day, I was at the pleasure of visit restaurants in Virginia and D.C. to thank the hardworking men and women serving our communities. I worked all day Monday. Where was my breakfast? No, thanks to once and future King President DJT's one big, beautiful, terrible bill, we'll see no tax on tips and no tax on overtime and eventually no money. So they can keep more of their whatever it is. First stop, McLean Family Restaurant in Virginia. For over 40 years, the Kaptankas family has lived the American dream, serving their community with heart and tradition and giving 50% of their income to the federal government in the form of taxes. Their famous omelets are amazing, and thanks to POTUS, eggs are more than 50% cheaper today than last. They're just never going to let that go, are they? We may declare a national housing emergency in the fall, the Sept told the Washington Examiner. We're trying to figure out what we can do. Nothing. But we don't want to step into the business of states, counties, and multiple governments. Yeah. We would hate to do any of that. They do that now. We don't want to step into the business of states. 5 seconds later, we're taking it over. Yeah, that's a funny line right there. We don't want to step on the states and counties. Kiss my grits. You do that every day. Thomas Massie calls for a repeal of gun-free school zones act following Minnesota school attack. Congressman Thomas Massie has introduced H.R. 5066, the Safe Students Act, which would repeal the Gun-Free Zones Act of 1990, putting it into what he calls the default federal policy of making schools soft targets. You know, it just goes back into anything the federal government does is terrible. If they put a rule in, pull a law in, it's going to be bad. And in 1990, they put this law in, which they had no right, no authority, no anything to do. And if any state had the spine, and on top of that, any kind of education, I guess, to say, you know what, we nullified that because you don't have any authority on any of our schools, which they don't. But any of the states take federal money, so they just tangle that little dollar in front of it. We'll take away all your funds. And no state has the guts to just go tell them, go pound sand. At least Puerto Rico right now is telling the U.S. to go pound sand right now. That's fantastic to see. And then you got the haters. Oh, they watch, they're going to go back in a third world country. Yeah, we hate. It's like that one guy, I can't remember his name, wrote "Small is Beautiful." And he goes, they like the name. People like the word freedom. They like the sound of it. They like they like the look of it, but the actual practice of it, they don't care for. And here's Massie's tweet: "My Safe Students Act (HR 5066) would repeal the Dangerous Gun-Free Zones Act of 1990." So it takes it back to the states. HR 5066 would make it easier for state governments and school boards to ambiguously set their own firearm policies. That's how it's supposed to be. Lawmakers return with a shutdown looking likelier by the minute. The Congress critters just got back today. And now they're looking like it about to shut down. Trump is root for a shutdown. Chris Murphy said, "Hey, we're back, and right now we're about to close this bad boy down." Lawmakers are returning to Washington. So the criminals are coming back to D.C. after a month-long recess with little legislative time and a lot to figure out. And the most pressing on their to-do list is the one thing they have to address: government funding, which they do almost every 2 months. With some, you're going to hear it in a couple of weeks. The government's going to shut down. Run for the hills. You're going to die if you don't do it. If we don't raise the debt to $1.19 trillion, we're not going to be able to get anything done. Well, meanwhile, you can't even buy a loaf of bread, make a couple of eggs, and get your grocery cart halfway full without spending $200. But hey, whatever these guys need. Again, Mark can't say it any better. Shut it all down. Shut it down. Pad the lockup. Let it go back in the swamp it came from. Yeah, totally for that. Without some sort of agreement, the government will shut down on October 1st. And both parties are bracing for that increasingly real possibility. And you people watching at home will notice that nothing in your life will change if that happened. Unless you're on SNAP. Then, of course, you don't get your government money. But outside of that, the cars will still be rolling. Gas will still be pumping. Chickens will still be pumping eggs. Sun will still come up. Nobody will get bombed maybe that day. That's a really good thing too. We won't be killing somebody. Hopefully, that'd be nice. Statistically, almost impossible. 4 AFD candidates have died suddenly. You ain't heard that phrase in a while. Died suddenly and unexpectedly before key state election. 4 Alternative for Germany AFD candidates died suddenly and unexpectedly. We just said that in Germany's largest state, North Rhine-Westphalia, right before state elections. It's funny, notice it said largest state. There's that line from Dr. Woods. Let's see if I can play this. Yeah, I'll go and play that right now. I don't know how many people have actually seen this. It's on, he's talking about Germany on there, decentralization. Where's it at? Elon vaccine, drone bill. Where's old Woodsy at? In Germany. Deputy, there's the eggs. Here it is right here.
Some practical considerations that come up when we think about secession. We look at the history of political consolidation. We go in Europe from thousands of independent territorial units to just a few dozen today. As Hans Hoppe has pointed out, in the second half of the 17th century, Germany was made up of 234 countries, 51 free cities, and 1,500 independent knightly manors. By the early 19th century, all three had fallen below 50. And then, of course, by 1871, we get German unification. What might the world have been like in the absence of German unification is the kind of question.
1871, that's 1860, Italy unification, French unification, United States of America unification.
That is not raised because it is not on the card. The card says that centralization is a progressive force. So you don't think about contrary to fact scenarios that deny centralization occurred. But it might be interesting to see how the 20th century might have turned out had Hitler simply been a good postmaster general, which was how one German official put it. Similar situation, of course, occurred in Italy with the consolidation there. What are the economic effects of centralization? We're sometimes told that great big countries make you richer. We have to have great big countries to be rich. Well, the Soviet Union was a great big country. Nobody really was rich unless he was politically well connected there. China's a great big country. People are becoming somewhat wealthier there, but throughout most of the 20th century, I wouldn't have held it up as a model. And yet, little Singapore, little Hong Kong are flourishing. There is no connection between size and economic prosperity. It has to do with the policies pursued by the governments of those areas. And the more territorial units you have, the more pressure there is on the political leaders of these places not to oppress the public, because the power of exit is very easy when there's another political unit right next door. It's easy to go there. And these leaders will lose their tax, suckers, if they impose too many unjust burdens on the people. So they are restrained by the presence of competition. It is impossible to imagine the horrors of the Soviet Union being inflicted by the mayor of a small village.
Anyway, so again, Pew, I played that many times on News from the Pew. Think about that. You don't want to, if you thought of South Carolina as it is a country or nation, Georgia, North Carolina is competing states, nations for your money, Florida. What do you see these guys doing? I'll have a video of Governor DeSantis right now talking about getting people of Florida to vote for their property taxes, see if they want them anymore. Now, if you're in Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and you're looking going, I could stay here and pay property taxes and state income taxes, or I could go to another country and not pay any of that. I'm packing up my bags. Move. You're telling me there's no property tax here anymore or no state tax? You mean I get to keep my money? Where do I sign up? Again, that's what we're talking about, the competition. You have one blob, you can't do that, which is what everybody's wanting to do. DC runs everything. DC runs the bills. You have no other control of it. Whatever DC says, final. In federalism, you have 50 units, hence State of the Union, what comes up at the beginning of every year. It's not State of the country, it's State of the Union. State of the state happens in each state. A state can do whatever it wants. You don't like what happened in that state, you can move to another state. Hence the competition part of it. It is kind of like the NFL. When if one team's doing something that works, other teams try to mimic it. The state does the same thing. This works, and all of a sudden they get an influx. Money's going up. Happy days are here again. People are going like that. And another state's going, we're losing money. We're in the red. Or, people are leaving. They might change. But if no one can change anything, it's just one blob. Where do you go? Venezuela? We're about to bomb them. Anyways, let's get back to this. I can't read German. Skipping ahead. Let's see. Comedian Graham Linehan arrested over trans tweets. The 57-year-old TV writer says he has been ordered not to use the social media platform X while he's been released on bail after being detained by armed police at Heathrow. And this was a follow-up. Nerve bond market spike as Prime Minister hires high-tax fanatics, threat of ID cards for all. Hard left rammers' ambition is the talk of Westminster, and armed police arrest Father Ted Ryder for tweets, leaving millions asking, when did Britain become North Korea? I haven't watched the whole thing, but this is from the CDC. I saw a thing about it and ended up just putting this out. There's a thing about sex for rent. This is exposing sex for rent ads that target students. That's how nutty it is out there. Again, Clown Planet. In ethnic news cleansing times right here, there's Trump teams. The Trump's team is circulating a 38-page called The Great Trust Plan of Gaza. It envisions a U.S.-run trusteeship for 10 years, turning the strip into a Riviera of the Middle East. The catch: it begins with a voluntary relocation of 2 million Palestinians, genocide packaged as real estate. You remember I played them, all those things. You have the AI video of Trump and Elon, and with the Trump Towers and all, it looks exactly like that. And you had Kushner, who is Trump's son-in-law, talking about how this is great property. It's on the coast. We just have to get rid of the people that live there. Don't worry, I have the thing. If you want to look at this thing, it's a smart city in a sense. Here's more of it. Skyscrapers as far as the eye can see. This is what once the future king, President DJT's vision for the so-called Gaza Riviera looks like. Remember yesterday we talked about that. He told war criminal Benny Netanyahu to go full out on everything. According to a 38-page prospectus seen by the Washington Post. And you can hear it. It's already in the links right now. If you go into links, you'll see the archive right there link. That is the Washington Post. See right here. Gaza post-war plan envisions voluntary relocation of entire population. The Trump administration and international partners are discussing proposals to build the Riviera of the Middle East on the rubble of Gaza. One would establish U.S. control and pay Palestinians to leave. If you go down here and you click the 38-page prospectus, that's hyperlinked. Here's what it looks like. And you got the thing right here. I can go right. Can I use it? I can't use this. What's going on here? I know I can use it. Dark. Blast it. Maybe it doesn't work in archive. So it's for social impact for 10 years. 1 million jobs created. Innovative funding model. 70 billion, 100 billion public investment, U.S.-led lateral customization, the Gaza Reconstruction Economic Acceleration and Transformation Trust, or the Gaza. It's great. That's what GREAT stands for. Gaza Reconstruction. And anybody who lives in the South, when they hear Reconstruction, goes, that's pretty much one of the most terrible things you could think of. And what they're doing, exactly what they did down there in the South. There was an ethnic cleansing in the South. They starved the people to death. You can look it up. There's a book by the Kennedy twins on Reconstruction. It is horrific. There was stories of people dying on the way to go get food because they starved and they had no food. It was just literally being starved to death. Anyway, I thought this would work. There's some stuff in there, zingers in there for you. Vietnam builds runway on disputed island to counter China threat. Hanoi is copying a Beijing playbook of turning islets and reefs into military bases. Speaking of Russia, the Americans moving to wartime Russia for traditional values. Moscow promotes visa scheme aimed at those disaffected by Western society. Now, I know a couple of friends of mine that have done this, and they love it. But also, Russia is still part of the. They got kicked out of the World Economic Forum. They're still doing CBDC. They're still doing technocracy. All that stuff that we're not for, they are still doing. Speaking of which, I don't have any war up. I just noticed that. Let's see what's going on in the war of killing people. U.S. conducts strike on vessel to Venezuela. Genocide scholars. Israel committing genocide. Trump zone would see South Lebanon depopulated. So really not much of an update from yesterday. U.S. military conducts lethal strike on drug boat that departed Venezuela. They say it was cartels, but they could tell us anything. Here's Gunther, cheerleader Gunther. President DJT is set to announce that he is reversing a Brandon-era decision on where the Space Force Space Commission HQ will be located. It's going from Colorado to Alabama. Roll Tide. This is huge. I don't know why it's huge. I imagine that Tubby Tuberville, who used to be a coach down there, and now he's in the Senate. I guess he was able to pull something off, and he got some money from this. Only thing I can think of. I like the wheel of Epstein distraction. It's almost time for a new wheel. I mean, literally everybody beforehand, leading up to the day, major announcement coming at 2, and they go, and this was it. I mean, this was it. Seriously, that was the big thing. AI-powered drone swarms have now entered the battlefield. In the new frontier of warfare, Ukraine is using technology to allow groups of drones to communicate and make decisions independent of their operator. Isn't that great? AI drones now. The garbage day mystery. Have you seen this? Mystery or viral video shows object being thrown out of the White House upper level room. Melania is mad, is what they're saying. I'll show you the video. You see it right here. You'll see something get thrown out of the window. There it is right here, yeah. I mean, it just looks like a bag or something. So anyway, Ducey brings us up, and Trump pretty much plays it down. Says, it's probably he says something about it's probably AI made. Those windows weigh about 600 pounds. He brings up the video to him. You can't even open the windows. Is that Tuberville right there? Yeah, I think that's Tuberville right there on the right. And so, yeah, that would make sense. That it's probably during the announcement of SpaceX or whatever what did you just say? Space Force. So, yeah, that's Tuberville right there on the right. Judge rules Trump can't act as national police chief, which should be common sense to most people. The president broke the law when he deployed troops to L.A., Judge Charles Brewer said. Now, the way they're getting the feds are trying to get around it is say, well, they were protecting the federal buildings, which, it's just like any other. Somehow when you have a building in Iran and you say, I put a flag on it, somehow that's U.S. land. Can Iran put that in the middle of LA? Just say this is LA. I mean, there's some use the embassies, but I mean, it's after a while it gets a little crazy in there. And it's also a violation of Posse Comitatus, the 150-year-old act. We talked about this before. It governs military role in local law enforcement. Now, if you don't remember what that is, Posse Comitatus came in after Lincoln's War of Northern Integration or the War for Southern Independence. And there's a judge rules against President Trump uses National Guard for protests illegally. Yes, he cannot use the National Guard. I mean, he can't use it, but that's because they're controlled by the governors. And he can't use the army, the federal army, to do that in states. So he needs the red state governors to allow him to use the National Guard and then tell everybody that they're under the control of the governors to get around this. That's the loophole. Whereas the Posse Comitatus Act is nearly 150-year-old federal law, limits the U.S. military's role in enforcing domestic laws. At its core, experts say the law reflects America's longstanding belief that law enforcement should remain in civilian hands, separate from military power. Criminal statute prohibits. Get them out of the way. Military enforcement of domestic law. It also prevents the military from investigating local crimes, overriding local law enforcement, and compelling certain behavior. Again, that's because of Reconstruction down in the South. Now, because of the Insurrection Act, they can say, they can spend that just because they can say, insurrection. And the law was enacted after the Reconstruction era. Enacted 1878, following the post-war era known as Reconstruction. At that time, segregationist lawmakers didn't want the U.S. military from blocking Jim Crow laws, which was a northern thing that imposed racial segregation, which is a northern thing. I got video of the Chicago mayor talking about how Chicago was built by slaves. Guess what state did not allow slaves inside that border? Illinois. Live updates. Trump announces Space Command is moving from Colorado to Alabama. Again, I don't know what is a significant boon to the local economy. Alabama and Colorado have long battled to claim Space Command, but again, it's red versus blue. So you take it away from the blue governor to give it to the red guy. So it's team party politics. Trump says he will order federal intervention in Chicago and Baltimore, despite local opposition, because who cares? I'm the king. I can do whatever I want and send any troops anywhere I want and take over cities because I want to. Again, he has no authority to do that. I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. No, you should just go play golf. If Chicago wants to burn, let Chicago burns. It's up to the people of Chicago to take care of Chicago. I told a guy at the gym, you're where? You're in Gastonia, North Carolina. What do you care about Chicago? Chicago braces for potential National Guard deployment as Trump points to violent weekend. It's always a violent weekend in Chicago because of Chicago, because of the people that run it. People that don't clean that area up, they're never going to get anything out of it. ICE to gain access to Paragon spyware after Brandon order dropped. U.S. ICE is on track to gain access to controversial spyware designed to hack phones and read private messages after future Kane president was DJT administration jettisoned a Brandon-era order. The Trump administration reactivated an ICE contract for spyware from Tel Aviv-based Paragon. Drink. If you have a drink with you, there's something. How'd you know that an AI thing was brought in by Israel? Water. That previously been blocked due to a stop order, according to procurement records posted on a government website. This story is all over the place. You know that, right? I know all you guys that are in the chat have heard of this, right? The Paragon thing, they're all talking about it, right? Shelly, I have no idea who's deleting comments. I just saw your thing. I don't have anybody I don't have a team. So it would have to be YouTube doing that probably. Or you typed in a word that's banned. That's the only thing I can think of. I wouldn't mind if Trump sent troops here in Boston. No, again, local people, there's certainly some people that are local that are saying that. Like that one guy was pretty much on his cell phone saying, come bring them in Chicago. But you didn't know if he was in Chicago. But yeah, he still has no authority to do it. The immigration agency signed a $2 million deal last September for a Paragon software, which has allegedly been used to target activists and journalists in Europe, but the contract was hit with a stop order soon after. And don't worry, Trump let that go. So now they got this system that can hack your phone and read your private messages. And what's supposed to start this week? Gideon. Remember last week? We're the only group talking about this. If you find me another Catholic group, or anybody talking about this that's in the Catholic world, let me know, please. I'd be love to know who is. Gideon, so if you heard it last week, look back at last Friday's or yesterday's and Friday's show, and I'll have the Gideon links. or you can just type it in X, Gideon, Gideon, and you'll see they announced that Gideon, the pre-crime, pre-cog AI program that looks over social media and everything else 24/7, starts this week. So you got Gideon starting this week. Paragon is starting back up too. Play up the Lee Greenwood song. I'm proud to be an American. Well, at least I know I'm free. GOP Rep Thomas Massie takes first steps to force the vote on releasing the Epstein files. Speaking of which, where I have it up here. I know this is it. I'll go ahead and move this forward a little bit. This is right here. But this was moments ago. This was actually at 6:17 p.m. The House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform released 33,295 pages of Epstein-related records that were provided by the U.S. DOJ. Now, this was a little bit after McGovern hammers Comer out over Epstein files dump, 97% of which is already out in the public. So don't get your hopes up for that. Most everything that came out on this dump, here it is right here. What you're telling us is you're going to release some of the files tonight. If I heard Representative Garcia correctly, 97% of which is already out in public. So we get 3% that's new. I don't know what's it going to say, but I just don't understand what the big deal is. Why can't the administration just release the files? You could do the investigation, but just release all the files. You know, Trump and the people he put in charge of the FBI and DOJ promised that they would, and it's kind of strange that they haven't done so yet. I mean, don't you think? We just want to know, what are they trying to hide? Why is this such a difficult thing for them to do? So 97% of everything that just got dropped today went from yay to nothing burger. Alarm after FBI arrests U.S. Army veteran for conspiracy over protest against ICE. The arrest of U.S. Army veteran who protests against Trump administration immigration crackdown has raised alarms among legal experts and fellow veterans familiar with his service in Afghanistan. Bajoun, I'm not even going to try it. A former Army sergeant who survived a roadside bomb blast, a special op, Michigan, Afghanistan, was charged in July with conspiracy to impede or injure officers after joining a demonstration against federal ICE in Spokane, Washington. And a violation of First Amendment right to protest. But again, it's also in the Washington Constitution to do that too. So it's just nuts. Officer who worked at Alligator Alcatraz reveals inhumane living conditions. Trump says U.S. has carried out strike against drug carrying vessel that departed from Venezuela. We already showed that. Again, they could just make it up as all they want. This is pretty kind of funny. China to unveil world's most powerful laser. Cue up Dr. Evil. I need a laser on the sharks. The most powerful laser defense system in front of Putin. New weapon dubbed the most powerful laser air defense system in the world is expected to be unveiled in China tomorrow. Lasers are set to be at the forefront of high-tech military parade to mark 80 years since the World War II, which will be attended by world leaders Putin and Kim Jong-un. Rehearsals for the event, blah, 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 blah. Go ahead and check it out in the show notes. In sports, Bill Belichick's UNC debut goes from celebrity field party to total disaster after months of hype. They got the snot kicked out of them, I think. It was, what was it? A 48-14 loss. His girlfriend did come out to say hi, I think it was. And his girlfriend's, 23 or something like that? I thought this was kind of funny. This Matt is local in Asheville, and some reason Trump retweeted him. A lot of these guys get big accounts, and there's some Catholic guys that have done that too because Trump retweeted him. So Matt, he's now all hardcore, everyone, but if you're not an R, you're a terrible person. Kim Rooney, Asheville, North Carolina's city council member, who refuses to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, has announced her run for mayor. Well, as she said, I personally exercise my right not to pledge allegiance to the flag. Guess what? I would definitely, here's how I would do it, the pledge. I would turn my back on it. That's how I do it. I don't go to Knights of Columbus meetings because I don't want to get in a big fight about that thing. But anyway, you pledge allegiance to a flag, you're a mayor of a city. That just shows the centralization mindset in most people. You're the mayor of a city. You're running for mayor of a city. You're not running for the mayor of the United States of America. What is your flag? The state of North Carolina. You're not running for the government of the federal government. You pledge it. Again, that goes into that one nation. We need one nation. It's an Ingalls line. It's an Ingalls dream. One nation. Look it up. Ingalls wanted to create these. That was the centralization of the 48ers in the 1860s and 1870s to centralize everything to one nation. They wanted to get Germany to one nation. Wanted to get all those guys in one nation. They came back over to get the U.S. into one nation. They actually infiltrated the U.S. government under Lincoln. And that's how they got into that. That's what the Bellamy, who wrote that pledge years after the war, he saw people reverting back into the state rights idea, loving the state, getting back into the states. And he didn't want like that at all. We fought all this stuff to get that one nation idea. Hence the pledge, one nation. No founder in their mind would have sworn allegiance to a flag. But we actually act like that it's a holy relic now. Lots of propaganda. Here's Chicago Mayor Johnson. Are you prepared to defend this land that was built by slaves, a land that was built by indigenous people? And Brian McClanahan, who's my historian, my kind of my professor online, somewhere 19th century Republicans are wondering how the 77 Black people that lived in Chicago in 1837 built the city, or how any more even showed up after Illinois banned Black people from living in the state in 1853. But yeah, racists. Where are the racists? Here's some good news of the day. Shia LaBeouf is wants to become a deacon, apparently. No place in children's hand. Under 16s in England to be banned from buying energy drinks. Government to ban sale of energy drinks with more than 150 milligrams of caffeine, citing concerns over obesity and lack of concentration. And those things, like Monster, they just loaded with all kinds of other weird stuff too. And here's the good news about the Florida thing. Florida DeSantis says he will allow Florida voters to vote to abolish property taxes. Imagine being in Florida and someone going, you know what? I'm gonna vote for property. I want to give them more of my money. Just imagine. There's Mark, I just saw it. There is absolutely 0.0 chance of that happening. I have blasted all his cheerleaders, him. The only thing I haven't touched haven't gone after was any of his kids, except for maybe Junior. Maybe there is absolutely no way that's happening. And I don't care. I mean, if the other guys in the Catholic world want to go down to Mar-a-Lago, they can go. I could care less. I was born in north there in St. Lucie. I love that. I love the beach. I love the area, but I don't care about going to Mar-a-Lago. But if he wants to, that would be cool. If he wants to retweet, that'd be great. His right-hand man, Jack and the entire Paso family has blocked me on the Sense of Fidelity account. So, yeah, that's Mr. Catholic himself blocking the Catholic channel. So, ain't no way. Again, don't care. As he says, DeSantis says we're going to place a question on the ballot that is going to allow Floridians to be able to vote themselves relief from property tax. My vision is if you own your house, truly own it, you have to own it free and clear of the government. You shouldn't have to pay rent to the government. Amen. Where's my U-Haul? Give me a U-Haul. We're going there. Who's not voting for that one? That comes down. And if he gets rid and income tax too, who's not going? But again, their homes are going down the pipe right now. Didn't want to say what I really want to say, but the housing industry in Florida is really going down because the people are leaving. So that's the way to bring people in is no property tax, no this. And if you don't live on the coast, like literally on the ocean, the insurance isn't that bad. And you can live in the middle of there and not get affected by the hurricanes that bad. It's the guys living on the water. You don't live on the water and the coast because that's where the water's got to come up somewhere. So you don't build on the water. You live inland. Anyways, yes, if it will happen, that's federalism. If one state wants to do it, they'll do it. If another state wants to do it, they'll do it. If another state doesn't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And then that's the beauty of federalism. You can leave, you can go, you can move. You can get it. You can get people that are like-minded to get in and help change, vote somebody out, change up the thing. You do your own thing, but most people don't want to do their own thing. But yeah, golf side is safer. There's a little section right there in the armpit area that's much safer. Even though I think this week is the anniversary of 1 year of the hurricane that hit us last year. Anyways, Helene, my mind just went stupid. Anyways, good night. Game over. Drive home safely. I'm going to go take a break. Don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the button underneath, all that jazz. Senseoffidelity.tv for the app. Uploaded more. Found some really cool things I could do with the app too later on. Anyway, have a great rest of the night. Thank you for checking it out. See you guys tomorrow. Again, good night to you.